Hello, my name is Darren Fuster. I'm the executive director of the Oregon Mozart Players. And today I am joined by Juhi Bansal, who is the OMP 21-22 season sound investment composer. And welcome, Juhi. We are so excited that you're joining us this season for this really special first time opportunity at a look inside a composer's compositional process. So, yeah, I wanted to introduce you and then, of course, learn a little bit more about you so that our investors know a little bit more about what to expect from you and at the salons. So let's start, if you don't mind, with a little bit about you and your background and your principal instrument and maybe what made you choose to be a composer.
Sure, that's a great question. Thanks, Darren. It's really nice to be here. And hi, everybody. So, I I'm Indian and my family is Indian, but I've kind of lived at this point equal parts of my life in India and then in Hong Kong and then the last 2 years here in the US. And it's interesting. When I was a teenager, I had zero interest in music, but my mom had wanted to study it as a girl, and she wasn't allowed to at the time. She came from a very traditional Muslim family, most of whom were very open minded, but her grandparents wouldn't let her study music. So when I was a teenager, my mom was like, well, you can do whatever you want to, but you have to do one martial art and one music. And that's how I first got in. That was through playing the piano. And of course, the second I started, I just fell in love with it. I loved making music. I loved imagining music. I loved playing music. And then I remember when I was applying for college, this is from Hong Kong still, I'd never been to the States, and I saw that there were composition programs offered at universities. Now, I had no idea composition programs were a thing. I didn't know this was something that you could study. What I knew of composition was like John Williams film scores, basically, and James Horner
Mm-hmm.
film scores. So, I put together, I remember looking at the USC application instructions, and they're like, well, create a portfolio of 3 works. So, kind of, there's this great sense of not knowing better. Now I know better, and I wonder how anybody ever, like, how I did that in the first place. But at the time, I didn't know better. So, I kind of jotted down scores for 3 pieces that I kind of made up on my own, had a teacher look over them and kind of check them. And it wasn't until I actually was here in the States. I remember the first week at USC as a composition student in one of the best composition programs in the world,
Yeah.
to realize just how competitive of a program it was and just what a big deal it was to get in. And it's been this trajectory where the longer I'm involved in music and the longer I study music, the more I love it. So in some ways, it's very natural, but I think I kind of had that advantage of not really knowing what I was in for. You just kind of leap in and find out as you go what being a composer is.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting. I love to hear that background on your musical background and your upbringing and your studies at USC. That's really cool. So I wanted to take this opportunity to sort of talk through the different salons that we have planned for our investors so that they can understand a little bit more directly from you what they might experience at the 3 salons. And so just for their own edification, the different salons are October 24th, February 27th, and March 29th. And the first two take place at the Midtown in Studio 5. And then the last one takes place at First Baptist Church. So, Juhi, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what we'll experience at those 3 different salons.
Sure. Well, I'll start with the first two, and I might ask your help with the third.
Okay.
The very first one, which is right around the corner, I think is just going to be me sharing very initial ideas for the piece. So I've started kind of sketching a little bit and listening to find some sound elements and things that I'm interested in using in a piece. So it's just going to be kind of a way to share those initial inspirations for the piece, maybe some little sound things that I know are going to work their way into the music, but I don't necessarily know how yet. So it's kind of just sort of sharing that real genesis of an idea that is going to be the start of this piece.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to the second salon, Darren mentioned we'll have some musicians there as well. So that one, you're going to see a whole lot of progress in terms of how those initial ideas that I shared at the first salon, now they're going to be concrete music that we can have the musicians interpret and play. Um, I don't yet know what direction it's going to take, and I think that's part of the joy of the process. Like we're
Yeah,
sitting and working with it, and it's a surprise to see what happens between the first and the second as those kind of kernels of ideas actually become completed music.
yeah.
And then, Darren, as we get into the third, that is the rehearsal. Is that correct?
So it's the production week for the premiere of the work. And so the third salon on March 29th will be before the rehearsal begins. So we'll have the opportunity for all the investors to have a draft copy of the score. And Juhi will have the opportunity to walk us through how the piece has manifested since the February salon. So not a whole lot of time between those two, but it's going to be really cool to see how it's come together. And then, of course, after that salon, right after the salon, will be the very first reading of the work by the orchestra at the first rehearsal of the production week. So that's going to be super exciting in itself, that we're going to have that unique opportunity to hear for the very first time with a full orchestra the piece come to life. Yeah. And then, of course, we have the premiere at the end of the week. And then those investors who've chosen to invest $1,000 will have the opportunity to have a post-concert dinner with Kelly Kuo, the conductor, Juhi, here with me today, the sound investment composer, and their fellow investors. So it'll be really fun and celebratory. And then following that dinner, after any changes have been made to the score or updates, we'll then produce a copy of the score for each investor with their names printed in behind the front cover, and then Juhi's going to autograph every single one of them, and that'll be the takeaway: your very own autographed copy of the score as an investor for the organ Mozart players, and then we'll have a brand new work in the OMP repertoire. So it's going to be it's exciting.
It really is exciting. Normally, all this kind of just happens inside the composer's head and nobody else is privy to it. So, one of the
Right.
things I love about this process is that it just kind of puts it out there for anybody who's interested to participate to actually see what the process is and how the music grows.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just excited to see from the first salon to the second salon to see what develops and to see how it, because that's really when you start to get the idea of like, how is the piece going to take shape, and maybe what are some of the melodies and stuff like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that comes to life. Yeah, so this is terrific. I'm so glad that we had this opportunity to connect. For those who are interested in investing, I wanted to let people know that we have a couple of different levels. We have actually a student level, which is $25. It's a huge, a really wonderful deal for students to be able to have this opportunity to actually interact with Juhi. And I forgot to mention, actually, after each of the salons, we'll have a short reception, which will be an opportunity for folks to ask questions and ask questions of Juhi and fellow investors. So that will happen. So we have the $25 student level, then we have $250, $500, and the $1,000 level. It is limited to a certain number of investors. So if you are interested in investing, I would definitely hop online. You can do that at our website at organmozartplayers.org/OMP-sound-investment. It's also available on the support page of the OMP website, or you can also call the office at 541-345-6648. If you are interested in the $1,000 investment level, it is limited to 5 investors. And we do already have folks that have signed up for that. So there's only a few spots left. So do call the office if you're interested in that level, but the other levels still exist at that great value. So October 24th is the first salon, and Juhi's going to be in town, and it's going to be so much fun getting to meet her and to learn more about this work that we're about to embark upon. So yeah, well, thanks, Juhi. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Darren. Me too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.